Hello. Today is October 22nd, which is 2 days before my baby girl turns 5, which I'm kind of sad about. It's also October 22nd, which is a year since my Chemo Teach at the University of Colorado Anschutz. And the Chemo Teach at the University of Anschutz, I remember quite well and much better than I did the one at the Rocky Mountain Cancer Center. Primarily because it was done by a pharmacist named Michelle who deals with cancer patients, breast cancer patients specifically, and who still is one of my biggest advocates and has helped me out throughout so much, specifically during my chemo. She became literally the person I called during so much crisis. During the Chemo Teach, I actually had about 8 days before I was done breastfeeding Rosalie. So I brought Rosalie to my Chemo Teach, which is obviously very pre-COVID, but I was like, I know I'm going to be here for about an hour. And so any appointments that I went to during those 8 days, I brought Rosalie with me because I knew they were the kind of the last days that I'd get to breastfeed her. And I was like pumping like a crazy person so that I could save up as much breast milk as I could. But anyways, I think having a pharmacist do the Chemo Teach was actually really brilliant of the University of Colorado. Being a pharmacist, Michelle dealt with, that's the number one person I called when there were any issues with any of the medicines that I was on. If I had any questions about any of the side effects of the medicines that I was on, if I needed to get another medicine, like to combat any of the side effects, that was the person that I called. One of the major issues that I had during chemo, which was actually really interesting because it came up during the Chemo Teach, and I think this is really important to bring up for anybody that is going through chemo in advance, way advanced. And I wish that I had, and it was funny because she did bring it up during the Chemo Teach, and I kind of blew it off, not thinking about it. But now I know after going through chemo that I am side effect queen. During chemo, the first chemo, I tried every type of medicine that you can possibly imagine. And I kind of learned that every single medicine has a side effect, and that every side effect that it has, they'll give you another medicine for the side effect. I am side effect queen. I ended up essentially basically making it through chemo on 3 times a week saline injections. So I would go in for IV saline. Even now during Herceptin and Perjeta, I have very bad, it's not neuropathy, it's the end of neuropathy. So I'm getting the feelings back in my fingers, but I still have severe hand and foot syndrome. So my fingers, I can barely open bags. I can barely touch things. I can't button my baby's snaps. And I have cuts all over my fingers and my toes that will just bleed for no reason at all. I can't type for long periods of time, that sort of thing. And I go in twice a period. I go in for every 3 weeks for Herceptin and Perjeta, and I go in twice a period now for saline to take care of that. Besides saline, the only other thing that I could really handle was a scopolamine patch behind my ear, which is basically used for seasickness. And that was pretty much my regimen. Those were the 2 things that I could handle. The 2 things that had the least amount of side effects. But one of the things that I did learn about during with the pharmacist, because she was the one that knew what was approved by my insurance and what wasn't approved by my insurance. And like I said, this is why I think having a pharmacist do the Chemo Teach in advance is really important. Was that I was going to be, when you go through chemo, many people, especially those on TCHP or anything, Taxotere, or anything that really just knocks out your red and white blood cell count, will be doing something called Neulasta, which is or another type of drug that it's an injection that you do 24 hours after your chemo. And what it does is it infuses you. It basically builds back your bone marrow. It's a bone marrow injection, and it basically helps build back your white blood cell counts. Now, you are told that the first couple injections, the first 1 or 2 injections, will be harder on you. you're not told that they should make you end up in the emergency room or to the extent that I ended up with. Now, my insurance only approved a biosimilar version of the Neulasta. And I knew this in advance because Michelle was a pharmacist. And a biosimilar version means that the FDA never actually approved that version. It's similar enough that the FDA does not need to approve it, but it never went through trials. And just like, so Neulasta has gone through trials, and it never actually, what's in it, it never actually it's never actually been like tested, let's say. So people can have a really bad reaction to biosimilar versions of things. I'm surprised that they're actually legal, completely honestly, between you and I. But anyways, the first time that I took this version of Neulasta, this injection, I was fine the first few days. I wouldn't say I could go run a marathon or anything or work out, but I was okay. Like, I was doing things, around the house. I was kind of wandering about and stuff. I was okay. I was sitting in bed and I was holding the baby here and there. I took the injection shot and I ended up in the ER. I was throwing up nonstop. I could barely see straight. I mean, it was like, it was the worst I have ever felt in my entire life. I literally thought I was going to die, and it didn't get better. I mean, we're talking, I was going to the care clinic, which is an urgent care kind of version of for cancer patients every day. We were talking to the oncologist and the fellow. We were trying to figure out something to make me better. I was like, I don't think I can make it through chemo. I had rashes all over my body. I mean, it was awful. I lost 5 pounds in like 2 days. It was terrible. And then the second time that I did it again, and also on top of that, it's also a $10,000 drug. And so it's a very obviously wanted drug. It's sent overnight by this pharmacy that Aetna approves of. That's like an overnight pharmacy. And it wasn't sent. Or it was sent and it was like stolen and lost in like Ohio or Tulsa or something. And Michelle, the pharmacist, this wonderful pharmacist that I had made contact with, she was able to get a version here that day provided to me, because if you don't take it within that 24 to 48 hour period, it doesn't work. And it's really detrimental because you can end up in sepsis or end up with other major issues if your white and red blood cell count goes all the way down after chemo. So it's really important that you get this shot. It's a very, very, very important thing, especially during those first and second rounds of chemo more than anything else. So having that relationship with that pharmacist during that Chemo Teach, I think is a really important thing. The second time that I took the Neulasta, this fake Neulasta shot, I forget what it was called. I had a very similar reaction to it, except this time my face blew up. I mean, I was the size, I looked like, Violet, you're turning Violet from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So we took a picture this time and I was like, literally, I mean, my entire body just ballooned up, and there was like nothing that could bring it down. It took probably about, probably 3 or 4 hours before I kind of went back to a normal-ish size. So after that injection, and then I had just as bad a reaction that second time. I got really sick the second chemo. I mean, really sick. And then finally kind of went back to normal. After that second reaction, Aetna actually approved me to just have the Neulasta Pro Onpro, which is just something they stick on your arm. And it just goes off after 24 hours. It just shoots into your arm. And it's really funny because it's not much more. Those packages kept getting stolen though. And Michelle kept having to reorder them from the pharmacy locally. And so finally she just got it overruled, and the pharmacy here would just do it because it was like Aetna was having to double pay for everything. So again, having that relationship with that pharmacist was really important. But anyways, the Neulasta Onpro, I had absolutely no side effects for. I barely even had any like muscle aches from it. So whatever that biosimilar medicine was, it needs to be tested because I obviously had some sort of, whatever was in it, I had some sort of, there must have been something in it that I was very allergic to, which wouldn't be a surprise because I'm allergic to a lot of things. But But again, having the Chemo Teach with the pharmacist and her telling me in advance what a biosimilar was, telling me that the medicines in it versus a generic where they're similar medicines. A biosimilar is actually different medicines. And her giving me that information in advance kind of made me recognize that this could be what was causing it. And so I knew in advance. I did not get that information from a nurse at the Chemo Teach that I had earlier. There was other information too that she told me about, like all of the different medicines, like the Herceptin and the Perjeta, and what to expect from them. And I think it was really helpful. Like I don't know that I got the same information. Not that I'm discouraging nurses from any chemo teaches, but I think maybe a nurse and a pharmacist would be a good person in the future. But having that relationship with that pharmacist, and especially Michelle, who's a fantastic pharmacist, but having that relationship with the pharmacist throughout my chemo, and even now to this day, has been one of the most invaluable, I think, relationships I've had throughout my chemo. And I think that Chemo Teach and that one time that I had with her to sit and talk to her, and building that relationship with her at first op was literally one of the most valuable days that I had. And I really thank the University of Colorado Anschutz for giving me that relationship with her and allowing us as patients to have that type of a relationship with a pharmacist. Because I don't know of many institutions that allow you to have that, but me to have a direct line to her, to be able to call her when my drug didn't show up and I needed it within 24 to 48 hours and it stuck in Tulsa because of like weather. I don't know what happened, or when I was having these reactions and I could send her a picture that she could send along to Etna and my face is this big, I think those types of relationships are really important. So yeah, today in history on October 22nd, I met with Michelle, and I am so incredibly thankful for her huge heart and her dedication to her patients, and for the University of Colorado for giving me that relationship too. And that's it. So I'm going to go back to our Drury day here, and that's it. So thanks. Bye.